Well, when you say the names Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, two recent suicides by very famous people who were battling depression or some other mental health issue.
Well, again, local businessman Will Russell, the man behind Why Louisville and the Lebowski Festival, now launching that nonprofit called Everything Will Be Okay to help normalize discussions on mental health. He had a very public manic episode back in 2015.
This gives me opportunity to look in the camera and say mental illness is a legitimate medical condition. It's like diabetes or cancer. And when someone breaks their arm, everybody sees the cast and they get it. You know, your arm's broken. But with mental illness, it's invisible. And it only shows up as behaviors.
Russell was arrested several times, lost his businesses, contemplated suicide. He says no one, not even his family, could rescue him at the time. He's now launched another business and a nonprofit to help others. Kathy Dobbins is a mental health expert with Wellspring. She's also on the board of Will's new nonprofit, and we thank you so much for coming to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, I mean, so fascinating that he says there was nothing or no one that could bring him back. That's a terrifying thought, I think, for a lot of families who might have someone dealing with something similar.
Absolutely. Absolutely very, very frightening for families who feel helpless. They don't know what to do. They try various interventions and nothing works. Extremely frustrating. For the person who's experiencing it, they don't have insight into what's happening, and that's a hallmark symptom of mania when it hits that level. Will was, he was experiencing a very severe manic episode.
We've got some of the symptoms that we're going to put up on the screen, but I guess to just go one step farther with that, if that is happening, the parents tried everything, even mental inquest warrants where you're put in a facility for a while, but if you're not going to harm yourself or others, oftentimes there's nothing a hospital can do. So what does a family do? Is this a breakdown of the system? I guess, what is the answer? Is there one?
Well, I wish I had the answer.
Yeah.
There really is not a good answer. Families can join NAMI, and there's a lot of mutual support in the National Alliance for Mental Illness. There are advanced directives that the individual can take out in a period of stability, where they can say, if this happens to me again, this is what I'd like to see
Which is
happen.
what Will did with his
and
dad.
Will has done something very similar to that.
We talked about that.
Right,
That's a powerful way to try to take control of your life when you don't have control, or for those times in the future where you don't have control.
Where you're not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, we were talking about just the self-awareness that takes in order to know, hey, I have a problem, just like any other illness, whether it would be diabetes or cancer.
That's right.
You've got to take your medication and you have to plan for what could happen, and that's what he's doing. I'm interested as well with what do you do? What does someone do if they have a friend or a family member who comes to them and says, hey, I'm having some weird thoughts, maybe suicidal or just out there. How do you respond? What does a normal person do in order to help in that situation?
Well, two different presentations there. So if a person comes to you and you're in a conversation with them and they're saying things that don't seem logical, that don't seem to make sense.
Somewhat delusional, maybe.
Exactly. You can't argue them out of the delusions. It doesn't work.
So don't try.
It's absolutely not possible.
Make sure they're safe?
If a person does try to talk them out of the delusions, it can actually end up increasing the individual with the symptoms, irritation. It can end up making them walk away. You lose the opportunity to help. So you want to listen, you want to be empathetic, you want to get them to trust you. And if they can trust you, then maybe you can begin to move them towards treatment.
Get back on meds and things like that, because
That's
Will said
right.
he refused to take his meds and there wasn't much anybody could do. So that's that scenario. Let's talk about if somebody mentions the suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
What questions should I be asking? What should I say?
Well, first of all, if somebody mentions that they're suicidal, you should take it very, very seriously. If they've made suicide attempts in the past, if they've talked about suicide, they've never actually made a gesture, they've never followed through, it doesn't mean that they want the next time. So you have to take it very, very seriously. And if somebody is deeply depressed, it's really okay to ask if they're suicidal, People think if I ask, then maybe
put
I'm
it in their
putting a thought in
mind.
their mind, but that's not true.
That's good to know. So go ahead and say, have you thought about this?
Have you had thoughts of hurting yourself? You do want to do that because you want to be safe. You'd rather be safe than sorry.
Right.
So, you know,
And if they say yes, what do you say?
if they say yes, then you say, well, how about, let's go see a doctor, or why don't we go down to the emergency room because I'm worried about you. I care about you. You want that person to know that you're on their side and that you value them, and they're important to you.
Really appreciate it. So building the trust seems to be key with everything you're saying.
It's huge.
We do want to put a phone number up on the screen, the suicide hotline. Every time we do stories like this, we certainly want people to be aware that there is help with a simple phone call, 1-800-273-TALK. Thank you so much, Kathy Dobbins. That was just a wonderful conversation and enlightening. Need to have a lot more of them. Appreciate it.
Great, very good. Just incredible information I think most people may not realize.
Yeah, you know, a couple other things I didn't mention. You know, like 2.5 to 3% of the population has bipolar disorder. So if it's 1 million people in Louisville, that's 25,000.
Right, we need to be
30,000
talking about it.
people. That's a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You